Eccles. Rosie, thank you for taking your time. A nice walk in the sun over to here today. Now, the reason we wanted to talk is we met just last week and you were telling me about your reason to step away from Team GB. And I just thought it'd be interesting for people to hear why you've done that and maybe have a little bit of look back at your time there. So for those people who don't know, what have you been at Team GB? How long have you been there with GB Boxing? And then why have you decided to step away?
Oh, so first, thank you for having me.
Right.
So I started boxing at 16, got onto the Welsh setup at 18 and spent like sort of 4 years there until I medalled in my first games, and I got onto GB boxing at the age of 21, 22. And yeah, the goal then is what my dream was since the age of 8, the Olympics. And obviously we're probably going to talk about everything that happened since, but I've spent, the last 8 years of my career commuting to Sheffield and back every week, living up there. Always kept my hand in with the Welsh team because that's always done me really well. Always come back from the games. But yeah, it came to a point a month ago nearly now where I decided, after 8 long years, to step away from the programme, and meaning stepping away from the Olympics.
Yeah, so people who maybe don't know how the team or GB boxing setup works, it's obviously up in Sheffield. It's a long way away. How does that work, and how often were you in? How often were you training for that?
Yeah, so my schedule would be on a Monday morning, I would do initial strength training here in Wales. I'd also pad with Colin. Nearly every Monday he'd come in early so I could train with him. And then I'd have a 4-hour commute up to Sheffield where I'd get there and it would either be sparring or bags, it would be a boxing session. And then I would, go to your food shop, go and get into your house. It's a long old day Monday, we always would say. And then, Tuesday we train 3 times a day, starting with a run, conditioning session. Then it'd be bags and pads again in the morning. Then sparring in the afternoon. Wednesday, conditioning session, a run. Then a boxing session, which is either sparring or bags. Then S&C in the afternoon. Then Thursday morning, again, run. Last spar before you go home and some bags. Then drive 4 hours back to Cardiff where I'd get to work with my physio team and all here and try and patch things up, bit of recovery. And then I'd S&C in Wales and maybe a run on the Friday, day off on the Saturday, and then I'd box still at my home club on a Sunday morning, and then it's Monday again. So I've lived that schedule for, as I would say as long as I can remember, but it feels like as long as I can remember anyway.
Yeah, that is a mental regime, but obviously it's what's required to have the Olympic dream, which you've been able to taste in some form, obviously maybe not in the way you wanted to, and we'll maybe touch on that. But how difficult a decision has it been to step away from that, and how much of the decision maybe was made a little bit for you, kind of you've alluded to with your body? Yeah,
it's hard to just answer that question without context. From the age of 8, I have been obsessed by the Olympics, and for what I loved multiple sport, growing up, I used to run, swim, whatever, and never really found my way until I walked into a box size class at 15, and that was kind of where I turned my life around, and it went from a dream into a real ambition. And it was a promise. I'm going to get to Olympics. This is my route to the Olympics. I'm going to change my life. I'm going to win Olympic gold. And that sounds so far-fetched, doesn't it? A 16-year-old kid really saying that, but I believed it, and it's something I've hung on to, all my adult life and my upper teens. And when I had my first fight, when I got my first trial for Wales and I got on Wales, each step, I probably didn't appreciate enough I'd got the next stage because it was about the Olympics, and I was so far away, but I always felt like I was on that path. And, I idolised my time with Wales, and, those years of grounding got me onto Team GB, which is your only route to the Olympics. And I was obviously hoping for the Tokyo cycle. I got on, and there was a girl called Sandy Ryan who had been on there for many years, older than me, was the golden girl at the time, and it was my job to push her off in 2 years. I remember going up, and it was really hard to adjust being up there. I was somewhere that was currently working for me, and I was suddenly in this pressure cooker with coaches I didn't know, and a task that seemed near impossible. She just got the decision over me in the Commonwealth Games, which is a funny story to that later on that we could touch on. I thought I should have had a gold, but that's boxing. But then to have someone there who's in your spot, who's technically got one up on you, it was hard, and I actually won. I won the battle. I got selected over her. I actually managed to draw her in a European Championships and beat her because it's England and Wales. the European Championships before the Olympics. And it was my shot at Tokyo. Super exciting, you know, like everything you never dreamed of. And we've not even touched on all the stuff that would happen up to that. And unfortunately for me, COVID massively got in the way. Through injury, I competed in the Olympic qualifier, lost on a split to the Russian seed. But what a lot of people didn't know is we now know it was COVID. I'd contracted about 6-8 weeks earlier. And every time since I've had COVID, it's attacked the nerves in my body. And I lost up to 90% function of my right arm by 3 months after the qualifier. I knew going into the qualifier I was in a lot of pain, taking a lot of medication. I told them initially they were something with my neck. They said, "Oh, we'll get you qualified, it'll be fine. We'll sort it afterwards." And then I started to realise that actually I was losing function of my arm. Didn't tell anyone because I thought, I can't let her have that spot. I've just worked so hard for 2 years.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't win. And then, Tokyo didn't happen. So then it all became about Paris. Whereas you could go on and say what happened in Paris. And then it became about LA. And we're currently in that position. I suppose you asked me what led to that situation and why that was such a difficult decision. I think I've gone through my career, I've always pushed through injuries, pushed through illness, given my all, and I have no regrets. But when I started this cycle now, this Olympic cycle, Rob McCracken gave me a really good offer because I was potentially going to, could I go pro? Would I do this? Would I do that? And he said I could split train, get a bit more out of my body, training with Wales and have that shot at LA. And wow, I was like, I've got one more chance at my Olympic medal. And but the hard pill to swallow is maybe all those years of pushing so hard, all the things that were happening, I'd had to make basically a decision that the one thing I wouldn't now compromise was health. There was a few clear health markers that we had to fight to get back. And I said, if they go, I walk away from the sport. And unfortunately, within no time of me back on full time, they disappeared. And we all had massive knee surgery as well. And kind of the decision was made for me by myself 1 year earlier.
Yeah.
So
are you, I suppose the question is, how much of that have you, all of that experience and all of those, from my point of view anyway, when I followed you and I remember watching your fight in Paris, and we'll get onto that because that's its own conversation. But it feels like you have done everything right, essentially. And, the hand that has been dealt to you thus has not come through in the way that maybe you'd hope. But I guess you can take a lot of kind of pride in that you did everything you can and the universe did what it wanted.
Do you know what, how you've worded that, I couldn't probably word any better. I've always said I'm very fortunate, but I've never had the luck.
Yeah.
And there's a few things I've always, I think everyone has their, I don't know how I'd say, their way of being or their morals. I have always been about, I really believe you only get out what you put in. And I've given everything and more than I probably had throughout my career. And when I say I gave everything, that's I also really was strict about living by certain morals, like integrity really matters to me, loyalty, honesty, and I've kept those throughout my career. I've never stepped on heads to get that, but I've given everything while doing it, And it's something I speak about when I speak with schools and I do it with young people. It's like, when I go to bed at night, I am gutted. I'm gutted I never got to reach my dream because I believed I was good enough to do it. But I sleep because I know I couldn't have given any more, and that's also in the decision to walk away now. I've always prided myself on being the best I can be, and what was the hard reality of being back up GB, I couldn't even weather the training to Tuesday. I was so far in the bin and I knew the damage I was doing long term to my body. So when you don't have any conditions set, I was win at all costs. As long as I had my values, push, don't listen to your body, just push as hard as you can. And it's probably what got me where it did. But now I had these conditions of sort of health markers I was like, I'm not compromising on. It changed the game. And I genuinely had the belief that I could not sustain that for 2.5 years and be successful. So what's the point? And whether that's for right or wrong, what's the point if you're not going to be able to give everything? And I found that really hard. I prided myself on being the best I could be. And I knew I wouldn't be. Different kettle of fish to push now for 6 months to the games.
Yeah.
But for 2.5 years in a body that's already kept going. And I'm 29. And that's the most frustrating thing. People say to me, "But you're only 29." I'm like, if you look at the severity of injuries I've had, and probably the amount of times I haven't really listened to my body, for right or for wrong, then you can see the accumulation, and also the way I've trained. I'm a physical fighter. You know, I'm powerful. I'm so fit. You know, that's the one thing that the pro side would have drawn me in. You know, so I've always prided myself on that physicality, but it takes a certain amount of training and effort and really digging deep, which I've always done. But that also has its toll. And, you know, maybe that's the fact that I end up retiring at 30, I'll be old.
With that, you know, I suppose the benefit of it all is it's going to end quite nicely with that Commonwealth Games being in Glasgow, you know, obviously similar to Birmingham, where it's on these R's, and it's your third, and there's a chance to kind of go all three. There is, amongst all of the sort of, I imagine, disappointment, there's quite a nice little tale at the end of it.
100%. And if I'm honest, you know, if you'd asked me if we'd be sat here having this conversation at Christmas time, I would have been so far in denial. I was in the bin going to Christmas. I was like, I'll recover over Christmas. I'll be fine. It's just because I've just come back and pushed. And I came back on day one of Christmas, and I almost had a breakdown because I realised I hadn't even recovered over 3 weeks where I'd actually toned it down. And then what I started to realise was, if I carry on like this, I'm not even going to make the games. And I pushed up to one tournament just to test the theory. Let's just see. Maybe I'll have this miraculous thing when I deload for a tournament, which I had 3 weeks to get ready for. Like, it's mental now. I boxed in, was it February after Christmas? That showed me everything I needed to know. I got the flu while out there. I was so run down, and I was like, wow. And now it was very emotional when I was GB. It was 3-4 weeks ago, and I spoke with Rob and my head coach Graham, and went individually and spoke to people. And I'm not an emotional, like a crier. I think I cried like everyone I spoke to. It was so embarrassing, honestly.
Just rinse and repeat.
Oh, it was awful because it was the end of something. And it was walking away from that dream. I've never ever given up on anything. And it's also people you've been connected to over years. But now I've come back and I've settled. I did hit the physical wall when I came back, but now I'm here. I feel so content with my decision. I love my team here too, and it feels so right. And I feel happy. Probably the happiest I've been in a long time. Is my body perfect? God, no. But can we manage it? Yeah. And do I think I can squeeze a gold out? Yeah, in form. I think I can. And I feel a great sense of pride in representing those people that support me and my country. I think, what a way to finish. Okay, it was an Olympic gold, and that's always going to be a little bit hard, but I know I've made the right decision, and what a way to finish. You know, it is about winning because I'm a winner, but it's also not. It's about, regardless, about coming home, being with your team. It's kind of my thank you from me to everyone as well, of like, let's just have one more quest together where no matter what happens, so many people have given their all for me, and vice versa. And I think it'd be special regardless, but the games always had that little bit of magic for me, and I just want that little bit more now.
Yeah, I mean, the Olympics is so hard because it is every 4 years.
Yeah.
And I feel like so much of it's about timing. There's so many talented boxers
Tokyo would have been my timing.
That don't ever get to an Olympics because the timing's just not right, and they choose to go. And obviously, I mean, LA, there was a point we didn't even know we were going to get it.
Oh, at one point we didn't even know we were going to get Paris, believe me.
Yeah, I think there's so much with that, and the fact that, like you say, with Paris, eventually you got that opportunity and you got that shot. You did yourself proud. As you were talking there, I was trying to think, is there any other sports you can pivot to? You know, is the Winter Olympics, give it a curling or something? You know,
I don't think my knee. I've always wanted just to go skiing.
What about darts? Maybe a bit of darts. That's not too much on the body.
If you see me throw
a little jab,
dart,
you know.
Yeah,
there might be some transferable skills.
I love all sport, and I've always wanted to play rugby. Always. This is what things have moved on so fast. I've got a really talented nephews and nieces, all little athletes. Got a niece who plays rugby. She's just turned 17. Always wanted to play for Wales, and it's brilliant. Look at the opportunities they've all got now. Like young girls. I mean, girls and boys, but young girls. There was never even. I would love to have played rugby growing up, but it wasn't there. It's like when I turned to my gym, they didn't train girls. I got turned away 3 times. You know, but things move on, and yeah, I would have loved to have played rugby, but I always said, I'll join a club when I finish boxing. There's no chance my body would get through one rugby game anymore, which is a bit sad. But hey, I've had a great run, and I love all sport. And I think, if my body will allow it, I'll always have my head in something. But I think a lot of my time will be given back coaching through other means, but I always need a bit of, you've got to have something, haven't you?
Yeah, I think so. And then you've actually segued me nicely there. I wanted to talk a little bit about that. And I suppose off the back of, you know, the career's not over yet and the Commonwealth Games and stuff. But if you're thinking about your sort of, you know, what you've left behind, your legacy, how things have changed since you came into, what was it, Chepstow ABC, and they said, no, we're not training you. You're a woman.
Just sneak up my moped,
all of that sort of stuff. You know, it's a crazy journey. But you now look at it and you've got boxers like yourself, Lauren. You had the first ever female Welsh title fight in this country, in the pro ranks. You know, things have come a long way. And talk to us about that, how you got into the sport and how you fought before you even got in the ring to kind of be able to.
Funny story, really. Like, I think I've said it a lot of times now, but people always ask me. But I just walked past a boxers class at 15, and I was actually looking through the door, and this man looked back at me and opened the door, and I was like, oh, I'm sorry. And he goes, well, do you want to come in and join? I said, oh, I'm 15, so you weren't allowed to do a class until you were 16. He goes, no, it's fine, come in. And it's so cheesy, but I put the gloves on and I hit a pad, and I was like, this is like my thing. At this point, the boxing wasn't in the Olympics. It was 2012, but this was, or was it maybe 2011 probably at this point. And I never watched boxing properly other than I used to like Amir Khan back then and watching things, but I didn't really get it, and didn't even know it was in the Olympics. But it happened to be the following year, the first year that it was in the Olympics. And I remember him saying to me, the man who ran the class, he had an ex-mixed martial arts background. He said, you've got something. And he said, look, I used to beg him to take me on the pads after the class and stuff, like beg him, like poor man. And he said to me, look, he said, I train people before work really early in Newport, which is normally a half-hour drive for me. And he said, you can come and join me, you've got to be 16. I knew I'd have no support, so I saved up. I bought a moped. I used to sell stuff at school as well, which kind of helped that along. That's another tangent, my little side hustle. But basically, I bought a moped, and I did you had to do I can't remember what it's called, this little mini test thing. And I asked to do it in Newport because I needed to know the roads. I have a terrible sense of direction, the worst. So I needed to go the back roads to Newport. So what I started to do is, when I turned 16, I had my moped. I used to go to bed in my clothes, pack my bag night before, wake up at 3 a.m, go out through the back door, wheel my moped down the road because it was too loud, start it, ride to Newport, which took me 45, 50 minutes. I used to pull in at this little McDonald's on the Calder roundabout to have a wee.
I know the one, yeah.
I had no money, so I didn't buy anything. And then I'd go on to Newport, I'd knock on the door, let me in, train for an hour and a quarter. And it's my first actual boxing gym, and the smell, if you ever go in that gym, it's the smell of the boxing gym. I'd train, then I'd ride back, push up the road, go in my room for 15 minutes, get up for school. I used to hide my sweaty kit under my bed until I got home later and I'd been done some exercises, put it in the wash. And it carried on for a couple of months until I got caught, got in loads of trouble, did it again because I tried ringing up the club, didn't train girls, and eventually I got onto Chepstow ABC where I pestered this other man enough, and he was great. He said no, and then and I have a massive respect for people of that generation. He's long gone now, bless him, but he changed his mind, and you don't know what you've never known, and people try to bash down men of that generation. He just never knew any different, and I actually have so much respect for him because he didn't change his mind. I'd have had no club to go to, and he was a massive advocate for me then, and the rest was sort of history, really.
That's a mental story, that. For me, as someone who is, I'm distinctly average. I'm an okay footballer. I can box a bit. But the idea of getting out of your bed at 3 a.m. to go and do something you're not allowed to do,
now,
that hunger to me, that's why I'm here and you're there.
No, do you know what, now I think, oh my God, you were nuts. But there's been things since where I think probably have done similar things. But I think where I was at that time, I always say to people, a little bit of hope. There was something glimmering in this that felt like I could change my life. And it just, I don't know. And that was so much stronger. And my dad didn't live, I lived with my mother at the time. And he's very strict and very fair. My dad's great. But you wouldn't defy him. But I did. And even now I look back and think, oh my God, my poor dad. But it was there wasn't even an option in my head. I used to my moped only went 30 miles an hour. So it was, and I was a little bit scared. So there's this back road. I'm not sure if you know it, from between Caldicott, Megaway and Newport. It's pitch black. I had this little moped, like I'm being like quite scared, but it was fine. Like
You got there.
But I think I've always been a bit like that. And then I think there was just something about boxing. I think when there was just something about it, and that was stronger than the thought of anything else, really.
Yeah. Now this is the bit I've been putting off because it actually still annoys me a little bit.
Okay.
The Paris 2024.
It's okay.
I remember watching this, and I didn't know you at the time, but I was watching it and obviously supporting all the Team GB lot. And the second your fight announcement, the result came out, I slammed my laptop shut, and I was just like, I'm fed up of this. This is because
it's ridiculous.
The Paris tournament, for many reasons, particularly in your division, by the end of it,
Everything was going on in my division.
That decision was overshadowed.
Women, anyone else?
Was overshadowed by the end of it.
Yeah,
all.
I know.
But it was a frustrating tournament as a boxing fan. I think
it's horrible.
Talk me through that. I suppose the story of what it's like to be an Olympian, because that's brilliant, and then the frustrating decision at the end of it.
So it's twofold, isn't it? So do you know what? I had a really hard year leading into the Olympics. I was on an absolute flyer the Olympic qualifying year, because qualifying for the Olympics is blooming hard. I think my draw was the European number 2, World Commonwealth European champion to qualify, then the reigning Olympic champion. Like, to qualify, it was just mental. And I'd boxed so well that year, and then I got COVID again, actually. Lost function of my leg. Long story, I'm not going to go into that. And I just never quite got right. I went out to a tournament. I had to take certain medication for my leg. Because of that, I wasn't able to box. I actually had to fly home, so I missed one of my prep tournaments. Then I went to another tournament, got absolutely tucked up, had one fight. Like, awful decision again, but no one knows about it. It's just a prep tournament, so I go home. And do you know what Richie Woodall said to me when I got back? Because that was stinking. He said, but do you know what, Rose? Don't box any different, because that will never happen in the Olympics when the world is watching. Your tactics were spot on. It won't happen in the Olympics. I went, okay, Richie. And I'd really struggled health-wise that year. And then, do you know what? About 10 weeks out from the Olympics, they sort of realised something was going wrong. I had a bit of medication, and I just started feeling well. Right, all my limbs were working. Right, we laugh, but it was great.
It's funny that's the bottom limit for feeling well.
Honestly, you would laugh.
Got working limbs,
and I just felt well. We went out to these camps, and I was just getting better and better. And I was like, something's happening here. I was like, how is this all coming together? Because we'd had the things that happened in the last sort of since COVID, like 2020, I've been battling. I had to have my whole throat closed up a third of my airway. I had to have it reopened to have an operation. So I actually won the Commonwealth Games before missing a third of my airway, of closing up. It's just ridiculous. But that's how it was. And I remember going to these camps, and every spar was just better. Every spar, top quality sparring. I was just on fire in the prep, and then obviously the excitement was amazing then, because I knew I was feeling good. I was on fire. And then we go out we're out in Italy, I can't remember all the places we went. And then you sort of come home, all the teams sort of secured, and all the media stuff lean into it, the kit. How iconic is the Olympic kit?
That's cool.
And that's the thing I remember as a kid, the Team GB. I remember drawing a picture of me swimming, running, and what's the other thing? I was cycling. I think I thought I was going to be a triathlete. I wasn't, but I didn't have enough money. But and in the Olympic rings, constantly would draw this, and you go and it's amazing how they take you around, try it on the NEC, and it's just wow, this is real. And the next day, I think we actually flew off for a training camp, and you had to earn your kit then. And sort of all the build-up keeps going, and then the team's secured, and then you're waiting to go out, and you go on the Eurostar, and you're treated you've never been treated like this ever in your life. But you're so focused. But I did soak up the Olympics. I've gone for my whole career. I've probably been so driven, head down, but I did soak up. We went out for a camp in Rems, and we were out with gymnastics. We were out with table tennis. We were out with it, and our bit swimmers. We're all in the same little hub, all training. So alongside, Adam Peaty, people, people that you probably idolise as fellow athletes, and you're like, wow, and it was amazing. And then actually it was my birthday, it was my 28th birthday, the day we walked into the Olympic Village, what a birthday present. The main training's done at that point, waiting for the draw, and you're like, wow, every Olympic athlete is here. And it's just, you don't think of that stuff when you're pursuing this goal. And really, the Olympics was magical. The stadium was epic. And this is what I tried to say to everyone. Up until the point of that decision, I remember, another little story here, I remember stood in the box. There's this box you always walk out of for the big majors, and they're waiting to announce your name. It's often the most nerve-wracking part, because you're made to stand still. You've warmed up. You're waiting for the massive event, and then to stand still and wait.
Yeah, you got so much energy. You're
and
ready
I've done
to
a lot
go.
of work, like I did some sports psych work, sort of outside GB before, and about how to, like, I used to do a lot of mental prep to how to feel that optimal feeling by the time I got to the ring. And I stood there waiting to warm up, sort of moving around, and I laughed. And I thought, I just feel perfect. I've never felt that perfect. And I thought, this is my last tournament of my career. I believed I was going to retire after the Olympics. And I thought, this is the last tournament of my career, and I've mastered it. Like, how funny. And I remember literally thinking that. And I walked out to the arena, I knew my family were in the crowd, and I knew my boyfriend was pretty much ringside. And I got in there, and she's tricky. She just wants to steal the fight, that girl. We knew that, but I had the plan. I'd actually dropped her in a spar previously, though, as well. So that was a nice little bit of a buzz. But I knew she'd be wary. But I was in there, and I remember boxing the first round thinking, I've got my tactics spot on here. And I was like, just carry on as you're doing. I remember sitting on the stool, just carry on as you're doing, Rose, carry on as you're doing. And then I think then she started losing the rag. It started to spoil, hold. I was like, they're going to have to take points off. They took points off. And people who don't realise what it is, once you're winning and someone takes points off, you're home and dry, really. But I'd never let up. Like, I think, keep going as I am. Bell went, and I went back to my corner, and they're like, well done. Like, first one's always the hardest fight of a tournament, and she's tricky. And I was like, oh, amazing. This is unreal. And obviously go to the centre for the decision, and it's just taken a bit long. And I just thought, and it crossed my mind then, because I've not had the best decisions in my career sometimes in the majors, and I thought, no, they just can't screw me. Even if there's someone, they can't screw me over. And then they announced her name, and my world just came crashing down. And I just remember, like, hearing booing, and I was so sort of like everywhere. I thought they were booing me at first. I've said this multiple times. The French crowd that don't really think much of the British, were booing the decision. And I remember walking out, and Richie Woodall was commentating. He actually left his commentary post, came back, and was like apologising to me. And like, it's things that you remember about people, and Buncey did the same. And he was like, Buncey was like looking like he was going to cry, to be honest. And I was in floods of tears. And this is what a lot of people don't realise. I think because of the health problems, I'd actually said I was definitely going to retire after the Olympics. And I remember going back, and everyone was gutted. And because I thought I at least should get a medal. You can never say gold, because when it's at that level, you got to have things go right in the day and everyone's good, right? But I thought at least a medal. And I remember in floods of tears saying, but I can't do another cycle. So maybe I did know then I just can't do it, because I knew I couldn't be up Sheffield that long. And I think that's what broke my heart, really. And yeah, it was tough. Even up to that point, the Olympics was everything it cracked up to be until that point. Yeah.
Maybe it was for the best, because if you'd got to that final, there would have been a whole nother controversy,
so
conversation to be joined in on.
Do you know what's really funny is she wasn't my concern. So I knew this was going to kick off a year in advance, because she'd been removed from the Worlds.
Yeah.
And so I knew this was going to happen. But so she's not fully female, not fully male. She's somewhere in between, right? For whatever reason, whether it's natural, whatever, you could just tell, not a male boxer, but just not a female, the way she's made up. But she doesn't deal with pressure in someone who's physical. And I'm so physical, she wasn't my biggest concern. My bigger concern was the really tall southpaw from China, because awkward over 3 rounds. I wasn't worried about the Algerian. I'd prepped for it.
Yeah.
But if you'd say, what's your top 3, I don't think she would have made it. She's beatable, but with physicality.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would have liked my shot. I wanted to have Buznas, who was a reigning Olympic champion, because I really thought I'd beat it twice before, and it's that'd have been a great fight for boxing, and that would have been my next fight.
Yeah. So just to kind of wrap it up, I suppose the important thing for many people will be thinking is, what's next? What is your feeling? If you have one, you obviously don't have to, but have you got any thoughts of kind of how you want to keep yourself in boxing, or maybe, leave it in the past?
Yeah, no, definitely. Boxing has given me everything in my life and more, and I want to give back to that, whether that is, through coaching. I have, ambitions initially. I think it's really hard because I'm still in boxing, and I'm very much what's in front of you. It's like, you don't look at the next opponent where you've got that one in front of you, and I'm going to give everything I can to these games, but you've got to be aware, and I would love to find a route through coaching. My long-term ambition has always been to be a performance director of an Olympic sport. I'd love to give back to boxing. I think I could, but that's a lot of years down the line. I'd love to give back to athletes that are driven and be able to. I love performance. And I know that you can have great people in a position, but if the system around doesn't work, they can't shine. And I love all those intermoving parts, and my brain works that way. I enjoy that, and I'd love to be able to give more people the opportunities that I've had, and I think I'd get a lot from that selfishly as well. I think I would really enjoy that, and I've always worried about the end of my career. It's something I've feared my whole career, but I've got very good people around me, and I think it's going to be a hard adjustment. It's very different, but I think a little bit also there's a part of me that also looks forward to that next stage too.
I suppose if nothing else, you've got experience. You know, there's not much the sport of boxing could throw at someone that you're perhaps tutoring that you wouldn't go, I remember when this happened to me.
Yeah, it might have given me everything, but it's thrown a lot of rocks as well. Yeah. That's. But do you know what? It makes you. And okay, I would change some of the decisions, but would I change my route anywhere? No, I think it makes you who you are. Yeah, as I said, you've had the fortune but not the luck. But that's life as well. And I think that's a really important thing that I was trying to communicate. Like sometimes you only get out what you put in, but some people don't always get out what you put in, but it's still worth it, because then at least I know, I know that I've done everything possible, and I've learnt, in myself and my character, I've got a lot from that, even if it wasn't Olympic gold.
Well, Rosie, thank you for your time today. Unfortunately, that is all we've got time for, but for anyone that's watching or listening, obviously Commonwealth Games come this summer. Keep your eyes open. Hopefully it's the fairy tale ending that we're hoping for. But otherwise, thank you for your time, and I'll see everyone on the podcast later on in the week.
Punches chance. Punches chance podcast.